You are listening to The Pilgrim on the 405 with Will Christ. Join him as he and his guests discover how businesses thrive in California.
Well, welcome to the Pilgrim on the 405. We are going to have a great conversation today about social media marketing. And we have with us Norel Mancuso, who grew up in Mission Viejo and is now in Hollywood as the President and CEO of Social House, Inc. So welcome, Norel.
Hi, Will. Great to be here.
Well, so tell us a little bit about what Social House, Inc. does.
Absolutely. Social House, we're an elite and fully integrated creative strategy group, and we work with some of the world's most influential brands. So sorry. 1 second. We're also a dog-friendly company, Will. I don't know if you're a dog person, but we are.
Well, and maybe there's going to be some babies around too, so that's
no,
okay.
We have no babies, not yet.
Right.
Just dogs at this point.
Okay.
For all the dog lovers out there, you get this. You get what we're going through right now over here. But so let me back up. What is Social House was your question. And answer to your question, we're an elite integrated creative strategy group. And so we work with all different types of brands to provide breakthrough social media and experiential marketing services, whether that's, creating content or developing a social media roadmap or plan for your business, or perhaps creating an experiential booth at a trade show. We kind of span that gamut of everything. So very excited to be here today as well.
Good. Well, now, so you know that the people that I work with are 10 to 250 employees. They are 5 to 50 million in revenue, and essentially they're within 10 to 15 miles of my session room here in Tustin. Mm-hmm. So as we talk with them, what kinds of things could we begin to talk to them about social media marketing? Now, these are B2B companies. I don't know that they all have a strong social media presence, but what would we tell them?
Well, to all the listeners and viewers out there, it's a competitive space, social media, isn't it? And there's a lot of businesses in the world. So just some statistics. Let's talk about that. If you think about social media, on Instagram alone, there's currently 25 million brands on social, of which 2.5 million of them are actively advertising as of 2019. So there's a lot of competition for share of feed. So as a social media advisor and the owner of a social media agency, what we really suggest to our clients is to come from a vision-first approach. That means taking a step back, thinking about the goals and objectives of your business, who the target audience is, and then developing platform-specific strategies to amplify your brand in the digital space. So we're happy to go into that more, but you tell me what.
Absolutely. The talk, those are nice words, but let's start talking about what companies can do.
What companies can do. So when we start to drill down, you have to think about basically the first things first is, what are the goals of your brand? If the goal of your brand is to drive website traffic, start figuring out what those performance and social media metrics are. And I'd like to discuss some of those with you. Let's say that you are a mid-size beauty brand and you want to drive traffic to your website via social media. Step one is let me take a step back. There's a trifecta. There's 3 parts to creating a successful social media strategy. Number 1 is developing content that tells your narrative. Content is a huge part of it. The thing is, though, is that unless you're creating a proper paid media or performance marketing plan to amplify that content, it might not get seen by many of your consumers. So make sure that you're creating the right strategy and content to go with one another and pairing that with a proper paid media plan. Mm-hmm. We can keep drilling down, but we're kind of like working down our funnel here. The third part of that trifecta is also thinking about how you can get thought leaders to also talk about your brand. In the B2C world, we call them influencers. In the B2B world, we call them thought leaders. So think about who the thought leaders are on LinkedIn. How can you get them to share your message? How can you have industry professionals talk about your business? And how can you have conversations to create content around all of the points of difference of your business? And that's a very high level kind of approach, but let's keep Let's keep
All
drilling
right,
it down.
so let's go over the three again. Content that tells my narrative.
Yep.
All right, was the next one amplify the content?
Well, the next one is really creating more of like a paid media strategy of our that's part 2 of our trifecta.
Okay.
And part 3 is finding those tastemakers, those industry voices to help amplify your product voice. Find the people that are willing to speak about your product and be able to speak about it in a way that will bring it to life, whether that's client testimonials.
Oh, I was going to ask if it was more than client testimonials.
Yeah, it could be more than
client
that.
Testimonials.
It could also be industry leaders.
Uh-huh.
It could be people from a non-competitive industry that can help bring things to life. And, I think what's always helpful for me, Will, is if we talk about a specific industry and I can help break down that strategy, and maybe people will find it that they can adapt that to their own business.
All right. So I'll pick out one of my clients. Here is a manufacturing company. They manufacture high quality steel windows and doors. Now these are for, $4 or $5 million home constructions around the country. And they sell these through distributors. So they depend upon leads from their distributors, and they depend upon their distributors to sell it. However, getting a clearer picture and a bigger presentation of their value would be important to them.
Absolutely. And my next question for you is, who would their leads be coming? Meaning, who is the target demographic that the distributors are going after for this window company?
All right. Architects who would specify these and who would also talk to home builders, the owner, the person who owns the home and is building a new home or remodeling a home. And they tend to be, 3, 4, 5 million, somewhere in that range of construction costs or remodeling costs.
Well, that's great. And I think we were chatting about this earlier, is that, the thing is if you're marketing B2B or you're marketing B2C, you're still dealing with human beings at the end of it. And so what human beings are looking for is they're looking to be connected to something. That's why social media is so powerful. So if I'm marketing towards the architects, towards the homeowners, or the people that can say, hey, architect Joe, Architect Will, can you tell me a little bit? I saw this online and I really like the features of this amazing window, the way that it's constructed, the double panes or whatever it is about the window. By doing that, what you're doing is you're creating people that are advocates for your company without putting so much pressure on the distributors to do it on their own. So it always helps, whether you're a distributor or a business, is to go out and figure out ways to amplify awareness. And a lot of that can be done through social. Now, for this company, you're dealing with high income earners. You're dealing with people that are looking for quality. And a lot of those people live and breathe on LinkedIn. They're also there creating profiles, talking about what it is that they may be doing. A lot of the architects' clients might actually be executives specifically on LinkedIn who are either doing, thought leadership online or perhaps looking for, something interest for them. But there's advertising opportunities right there on LinkedIn to target those high income earners, to put your brand or your manufacturing company into the hearts and minds of consumers online. So it's a matter of getting into the psychology. It's breaking down the thought process. Where do those consumers live, and how can you make your marketing funnel cyclical, where people are actually going to those leads or those people like architects and saying, I want this. So B2B needs to be proactive on social just as much as B2C does.
All right. So let's move to a different client, a manufacturing company. They manufacture pumps. And these pumps, two categories. One is B2C, because they manufacture pumps and devices for swimming pools.
Great.
All right, so that's B2C. And then on the other hand, they do a lot of selling large pumps to government entities, water filtration plants and things like that. now I can understand how a concentrated program for the B2C part with swimming pools, but what about government sales? Is that work with social media?
Absolutely. People that work in the government are also on social media, and people that are looking in their, perhaps from those procurement teams on the government side, are also on social media looking for vendors and ways to optimize their vendor pool. So finding and targeting those people, working with, like, searching on LinkedIn for procurement opportunities at major corporations and or government organizations is a great way to figure out how to target people. So the way that would be done is via keyword search and putting paid media behind your pumps to figure out, are they biting on it? And it's then monetization and performance kind of analysis on the back end. But there's definitely opportunity to target even the most obscure, somewhat clientele on social. So,
well, all right. So let's ask.
Online,
let's ask. I'm going to ask for my clients. How would they work with you? Now, some have marketing people there on their leadership team, and some don't. What would be the way that they would find the greatest value from working with you?
It's a great question. And when people look at agencies like ours, there's 3 words that come to mind. 1, you build it, meaning you build an internal social media team. 2 is you rent it. You rent an agency such as Social House, a team of experts to help you. Or 3, you buy an agency of experts to help you. And companies are looking at this from 3 different perspectives. Now, the ones that choose to build it internally, we're often working with them to help keep that team from going kind of stale. They're working on one brand the whole time versus going out there and seeing what's next and new to bring innovation to your team or your brand. So we come in and we help invigorate those internal teams. So some people build it, and teams like ours are utilized to help amplify and educate those team members so that they stay fresh and ready to go. Other people rent us, meaning they hire us for our services and expertise to come in and work with them on various strategy road mapping, to work on developing content and storylines or specific online messaging for them. Or perhaps they work with us to create their latest trade show booth. We're really there as experts in the field to bring to life the brand and bring it from the virtual to the reality, from online to experiential.
Right. Like being a trusted advisor, an expert in the field.
Absolutely. But we also execute. I think, I don't know about you, Will, but I've met some really creative people in my lifetime, but they can't execute worth a damn. So it's very important to be able to both be creative as well as execute on your ideas. Okay.
And the third is to buy.
Yeah. So the other option is that people have, given us, offer purchase us, and, that's another option, but we're looking for, the right partners. But a lot of the agencies have sold to bigger conglomerates who want to merge and amplify resources.
All right. Now, so it seems to me that many of my clients would fit into the second level, not having a strong internal group, but looking to implement a social media strategy. Now, here's a tough question, and I'm sure you're going to say it depends. But I'd like to get some sense for these couple of questions. One is, what kind of time does it take to start getting results from a social media campaign?
If we're creating organic content, meaning owned content, and posting it, it'll take a very, very long time with application of paid media. And the reason is that only less than 6% of the content you post on your social media channels will ever be seen by your audience. So as a brand, let's say on Facebook, you have 1.5 million followers. Only 6% of that will ever be served one of your organic pieces in their feed. So you need to pay to boost it. We call it, news feed amplification marketing. And it really just kind of helps bring that content into the user's frame of mind, or in their feed, if you will, not frame of mind, but in their feed. Okay. So, sorry, go ahead.
No, I understand it. this is a way of amplifying that. You'd have a bigger share of that million people who were watching it.
That's absolutely right. So brands need to set aside realistic paid media budgets to make sure that they are targeting the right people. Otherwise, you're just creating content for the sake of creating content. A lot of clients that we have, the first question they say to us is, Social House, can you tell me, what's the content going to look like? And what we say to them, Will, is we say, actually, let's take a step back really quick. What's the strategy? And that's what we answer for them. We help bring that strategy and bring that funnel to life. So, for us, we like to move quickly. I'm a mover and a shaker, and so is my team, but we like to work strategically. So we start with strategy first, and then we start building out our paid media amplification to get results and drive metrics for our clients that matter.
Most of the advice that I have gotten and heard and seen other people use at this particular level, and they're not sophisticated about it, but it's, spend 15 minutes on LinkedIn every day and publish once or twice a week some content. And I have not discovered a lot of results from that.
Okay. There is still a lot of opportunity for organic growth, I believe, for individuals on LinkedIn. I still think that if you're a thought leader on LinkedIn and you have compelling articles and you're using the right hashtags, you can still get a certain amount of organic reach and organic engagement. But we're talking about brands. And if I'm a brand and I'm promoting my business on LinkedIn, you should be amplifying specific pieces of content that relate to your business or promoting those pieces of content to get into the feeds that matter. Otherwise, you're just talking to your own audience versus branching out and reaching others to drive them back into your funnel.
All right. So I think in terms of return on investment, right? That's the only way that I can think. Anytime that I suggest that somebody go into their supervisor and ask for money, it is put together the return on investment page. I mean, when people believe that they're going to get a multiple X return on their investment, all they got to do is go find the money. Right?
Yeah,
so
correct.
So I'm looking and wondering, what kind of investment should somebody be prepared to make to get an effective return on that investment?
Well, you're right. That does depend, doesn't it? So there's different size businesses. Social House has worked with everybody from PepsiCo to Revlon to L'Oreal to smaller brands as well. And so we try to provide realistic budgets. And what we try to do is we say, okay, for $5,000 a month in paid media advertising, we'll get you a cost per click of 50 cents. Okay. And that's just a hypothetical. We've achieved better than that, but we try to offer those hypotheticals. And then we do the math and we say, every month, here's what we're forecasting. So, the thing is that you're not going to know ROI unless you test. And I'm talking about specifically performance and paid media on social. So when you're talking about investing money, start with a test. You don't need to spend thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars on paid media advertising. Start with a test. Put $1,000 against paid media. Create multiple pieces of content that you can test and A/B test. Create different copy and use really amazing keywords. Meaning, let's say you're a pump company. Don't just put in there as keywords, put in there pools, travel, vacation, family, put in all the family kind of things that go around a swimming pool. Don't just create the things don't just talk about pumps. Broaden your horizons so that you reach different people. So, it really depends on the client's budget, but I would say a healthy budget per month is about $5,000 to $10,000 a month for smaller businesses. For bigger businesses, I would be upwards of $20,000 plus a month, depending on your budget and what your goals and objectives are.
All right, so a budget of $5,000 to $20,000 for media buy. What about working with you?
That's a great question. So I know that I'm talking to hundreds of business owners right now, broadcasting to them.
Right.
And all of those different business owners know that we need to have different funnels of business.
Right.
There was a time as an entrepreneur that I thought it was most wise to have enterprise level clients.
Oh, yes.
And what I have learned is that it is so important to diversify your funnel, isn't it?
Yes,
So
yes, yes.
I have retainers from $5,000 a month all the way up to $150,000 a month.
Okay.
It truly depends on first of all, the goals and objectives, and also the services needed by that particular client in order for us to provide a proper quote.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing I love is I love a challenge, and I love challenger brands. I don't like the coolest brand out there because they've already done it.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm really looking for is brands that have an innovative product. I'm looking for clients that believe in their product. Mm-hmm. And I'm looking for clients who truly trust our expertise, because that's when we are able to provide the absolute best results to our clientele base as well.
Right, right. Well, I mean, that's something that when I introduce you to my clients, that I wouldn't put them in a place where you were gonna say, well, you got to have a couple $100,000 to be able to work with us, because I don't think that's where they are right now.
Mm-hmm.
And on their way to their, $25, $35, $50 million or $150 million 10-year target, they're going to pick up at some point. Mm-hmm. But right now, that doesn't, that may not be where they are. But knowing what they are what would be necessary, then that's something I think that would be valuable to share with folks. So what I'm hearing is, be prepared to spend maybe $100,000 over a year on building an infrastructure that's going to produce leads, contacts, clicks, something, and then figuring out what kind of return on that $100,000 investment they would need to have to justify that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Can you help them with that?
Absolutely. Is figuring out, first of all, as I mentioned, the number one, step one is understanding goals and objectives. And I've walked, into rooms and the goals didn't make sense with the budget. And unfortunately, we had to pass on the business. But one of the things I will say is that when goals are set and they're realistic, and goals are set and we all understand what those clear objectives are, I get this a lot, which is, one of your KPIs, Norel, is engagement. There's sales, there's click-through, there's lead gen, and then there's engagement. What's the importance of engagement? I call it return on engagement.
Yes, yes.
And Will, what's so great about return on engagement is that, that might not lead to a sale, a click-through right there that you can measure. But what it is doing, it's creating an immediate, what you're showing is that, say you have, let me back up. An engagement is a like on a post, a comment on a post, or a share, or sometimes even considered a view, but usually video views are separate. But let's just say, for the sake of clarity, likes, comments, and share. Likes, comments, and let's just say likes and comments. So if you have likes and comments on something, it's counted as an engagement. And when somebody's engaging with your content, it means A, you have them captive for a moment, enough for them to go stop mid-scroll and double tap your photo or like your post.
Right.
It means that they read the content. They're more likely to convert, but you're putting them in your funnel. So you have to have engagement, because if there's no engagement, it just means that people aren't seeing your stuff and don't really care about what you're saying. So you want people to care. So it builds the funnel, but it's it's more of that, awareness kind of play that every CFO hears that and rolls their eyes. They're like, what's this awareness stuff?
Well,
but
it's not any different from the CEOs who treated sales like a black box. Just yell down, more sales, please. Had no idea how to measure it, had no idea what more sales meant. And chances are they weren't talking to operations and saying, we get more sales, we're going to need more manufacturing. I've been in that place where I helped them quadruple their revenue and then blow out the back end, which wasn't very nice.
Right.
So and what you're talking about is in order to make sense of this, we have to be very clear about the data, our expectations. What do we expect 10 years from now, 25 years from now, 5 years from now? And then what will it look like 3 years from now? What are we doing? What do we have to do this year to get to that 3 year? And the data that we get each week is exactly what you're talking about, is we have so much engagement, and that leads to the next step, which finally we now have a qualified lead, right?
That's right. That's right.
And what I'm hearing is that you can bring that knowledge and that systematic way of looking at producing qualified leads from social media, because I don't think many people have a clue how to do it.
What we do in a nutshell is we make people fall in love with your brand. You know, we romanticize what you do in a way digestible by human beings to feel something when they're looking at you versus a competitor. And that is more important than a click. That's more important than just seeing what your click-through rate is or anything else. What that's doing, it's creating brand awareness, and it's creating future kind of opportunities for growth. Now, clicks are important too, but building that story online and creating the connection is really what social media is for. And I think a lot of people look at social media and they're like, this is supposed to support my business. This is my main marketing tactic. Wrong. You know, social media is there to amplify your marketing efforts, not carry them. Don't think of social media as your only marketing tool. It's not. You know, what it's to amplify your marketing efforts.
So how would you put if there's not, I mean, if the competitor is really doing nothing, right? It's not like, oh, I'm choosing between 3 different products or services, but the competitor is really, why should I even get involved? I mean, that's kind of where you might be. Is that fair?
I'm not quite sure I understand the question. Explain that to me.
All right. So if you were to talk to one of my clients right now who's not really involved in social media marketing, they're not looking at you versus 2 other vendors. If you were talking to them, the real conversation, and if you were addressing them through social media marketing, the real issue would be to motivate them to do something rather than nothing.
I have said, and I have seen this become true when I have talked to clients who say that they do not believe in social media, their market share continues to dwindle year over year.
Yes.
And what that means is that by not doing anything, what's the loss if you try something? You know, you got to try something. And so the thing is that,
does that become part of the marketing itself? That the narrative about the companies that didn't do anything and the companies that did something.
I mean, looking at the comparison and if you didn't versus if you do, I think it's a no-brainer. And I think that people that don't believe in social have a rude awakening coming. I don't care if you're B2B or if you're B2C. There needs to be awareness about your brand, even if you go through a distributor, because again, that consumer can influence that lead that is being sold to by the distributor. So, there's a lot of ways to look at it, but I mean, yeah, I think it's just people that don't believe in social. I just kind of, it baffles me still, because the power of social and the results of social. I'll tell you this much. I worked with a beauty client. I come from the beauty industry, Will. I worked at L'Oreal in my former career. And then before that, I worked at a company called Henkel, which is a German company that owns a beauty brand called Schwarzkopf. And, we were working with all kinds of brands, and some of the brands that just kind of fell behind were the ones that weren't moving as quickly. This is back in 2010.
Yeah, Henkel has a fairly large office here in Irvine, right?
Yeah. They're a wonderful company, And, with Henkel, I think that one of the things that they caught on to quite early, and they really were, they were also, I should mention this, they were my first job out of UCLA when I graduated there, right? And so when I went there, what they taught me was that, marketing, you have to constantly be innovating, and innovation is a process of trial and error. So how are you going to be innovative if you don't try? I think that one of my mentors, she said to me, Norel, innovation is a process of trial and error, but fail fast, pick up the pace and get going and figure out what's next. Right. Well, in 2010, I went to her and I said, hey, listen, Kathy, I got this crazy idea. Remember, 2010, there was no Instagram. There was barely LinkedIn. There was MySpace that still existed, which is just archaic to think about nowadays. Yes. And there was also, no advertising on social at that point that was recognizable by the So what I said to her, I said, I got this crazy idea. I think brands and their consumers need to communicate in a better way using this thing called social media.
Mm-hmm.
And she said to me, she said, honey, I don't know what the hell you're talking about, but go, just go do it. Okay. And we ended up building an audience, and they were an early adopter.
Uh-huh.
And then they had other brands that weren't, so the ones that were early adopters in the social media space got out there and got their message out faster. And if you're just starting and you're listening out there and you're just starting your social media efforts, don't be afraid. It's not hard. What you need to do, though, is start strategy first and build back from there. Don't think about what you need to post or what platforms you need to be on. Think about why you're doing it and the importance of social media for your company, and then start to build out the tactical details from there.
Are there resources for companies to consider putting together strategies?
Well, Social House, of course.
What's that? Social? Well, all right. So how would a company make use of the resources of learning how, if they were going to build it themselves?
Mm-hmm.
And not necessarily. I mean, the companies that I'm working with don't have big teams. It may be one person or one person and an assistant.
Mm-hmm.
It may be nobody right now. So how can they learn? What would be a way of them learning from you? How can I learn from you?
Oh, I love that. Okay, so that's a great question. What we do is we go into companies, big and small, big teams or no teams, and we set aside a 3-year plan for department build out. So we say, here's where your department needs to grow to facilitate this ongoing, and here's where you currently are. Let's say you have one internal person.
Mm-hmm.
We not only train that internal person, we give them best-in-class guidelines on how to do community management, how to create content in a time-efficient manner, how to stay on top of the latest and greatest. We go in and we educate those employees and those small teams to make sure that they're the best that they can be. We've built a best-in-class agency. We know what goes into it. We know how difficult it can be, but we really go in to try to train those teams to be an extended or an internal agency, if you will. We also, and this is also a huge part of it, we train executives. We work with so many executives that are like, well, what's Facebook? And we're like, oh boy, we got to really start from the ground up here. But we go in with those executives and we take them step by step, and we answer all questions. There are no dumb questions, to make sure that they understand the importance of social media and understanding what ROE, which is return on investment, and ROI mean to their business.
Okay.
Does
All
that
right.
answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so now let me put something together.
Okay.
Suppose I have, let's say, 10 clients who would be interested in learning how to be more effective, get more value from their efforts and their investment in social media marketing. Could we put together a workshop for them where you would teach them?
Absolutely. And you know what? We do this already. Social House is a woman and minority owned business.
Mm-hmm.
And we work with women and men to help them kind of bring to life their social media.
Mm-hmm.
Most of them are small businesses, but we do group workshops. Some companies prefer that we do more of a one-on-one with their specific team, so they get that one-on-one education. But I'd be more than happy to put together a workshop for your clients and work with you guys to make sure that we're answering all questions. And that would be done probably over a series of 3 different sessions, each of them lasting about 2 hours each.
Okay. All right. And then if somebody wanted to, build, rent, or buy, then they could talk to you individually.
Absolutely. We want to be an outsourced service with an in-house feel. Social House is here to help. We don't want to ever make people feel uncomfortable about talking about social. We want to answer questions, and we want to make it fun. I always say this. Well, I explain this to my parents. I always say, think of traditional marketing as the wedding. Social media is the reception. We're the fun part, we want to bring all those great marketing efforts to life in a really fun way so people can celebrate your brand and bring stories to life.
Excellent. Well, what would you like to say to folks? This has been very helpful and very interesting and exciting and challenging for small businesses. So what would you like to tell them?
I would like to tell you that social media does not need to be overthought. It doesn't need to be overly complicated. But what it does need to be, it needs to be strategically thought out. So when you're thinking about social media and experiential marketing and the importance of targeting your B2B consumers or clientele, I should say, make sure that you understand that going through it is a journey. It is a journey, but with the right strategy in mind, it can be a quick one to ramp up. So find the right alliances, find the experts, AKA us, to help you get there. And we can't wait to meet you. Thank you.
How would they contact you?
You can find more information about Social House at www.socialhouseinc.com.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, Norel, thank you so much for being here. This has been a really enlightening 40 minutes. I really appreciate that. And I think it'll be very helpful to small businesses, especially the ones in Orange County who are listening to this.
Well, I'm from Orange County, and go Orange County, and I'm here to support you guys if you need our help. So thank you so much, Will, for your time, and we'll talk soon.
Well, and that's another example of how businesses in California can thrive.
That's right.
You've been listening to The Pilgrim on the 405 with Will Christ.